Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone, to your Wednesday night webinar. Good to be with all of you once again, brought to you by NoCD. NoCD is an online platform for the treatment of obsessive compulsive and related disorders. Feel free to check us out at nocd.com or Treat My OCD. You can go there too. And if you're looking for help for BFRBs or tics or hoarding or OCD, we'd be more than happy to work with you. And we do take insurance here in the U.S., lots of them actually, all throughout all 50 states. So again, set up a 15-minute call with us at nocd.com or treatmyocd.com. And also we'll work with you if you're in Canada or the UK or Australia. If you're outside those areas, give us a call. Let's see if we can help make something happen. All right, let's see. Oh, the first one's going to be a doozy. This is interesting. All right, you'll see why in a moment here. I'm really struggling with the thought that my husband could die. If we would be married in heaven, if there's an afterlife, it's causing you to doubt your faith and you're struggling really bad, which leads you to the thought of what is the point of all of this when everyone you love could drop dead and you're going to be alone and you may or may not see them in heaven and you say you are a Christian. It is a interesting question or statement here to start us off. As many of you know, my wife died, and today's actually our wedding anniversary. So this is an especially interesting question to come up for today, as she has been on my mind today. So I'm going to go with some of this. What is the point of all of this? So maybe I shouldn't have ever gotten married. Maybe that was a mistake. I mean, we were only married a year and then she got cancer and actually we found out she'd actually had it before we even got married. We just didn't know. So growing old with you, I'm wondering if you would tell me that it was dumb to get married in the first place, which of course would have meant that she would have been single. And then that would have meant that she would have had to suffer through all of that alone. And it would have been her family taking care of her. Would that have been a better experience? And then I wouldn't have had to deal with being a caretaker for all of those years and in some ways really suffer through that, because that is a very difficult experience to be a caregiver. And since everyone that we love could drop dead and we could be alone, is it better to never love anyone whatsoever would become the question. There's that old saying, it's better to have loved than lost than never to have loved at all. You could have that. There's other people who have someone who's kind of a ghost, I think, who haunts their life. And that's a person that they'll think about for the rest of their life. Even if they're not with that person is always going to be in the back of their head and on their mind. There are people who have that as well too, right? So that is a possibility. Your husband could die. I'm going to be honest with you. It is possible. I know this from lived experience because, again, my wife did die. And will you be married in heaven? And is there an afterlife? I don't know that we can be really definitive on that. We have various books and things that tell us all of those things. But the problem is that we don't have the absolute answers that we would like. And this is where faith really comes in, when you're in a belief system that you have faith that those things are there. But faith, of course, is the acceptance of something without proof, right? And faith is a very hard thing to have when you have obsessive compulsive disorder, due to the fact that OCD doesn't think faith is enough. OCD wants truth and absolutes and answers and 100% guarantees. So there's no way that I'm going to be able to guarantee you anything about an afterlife whatsoever when we have multiple religions who all say the other one is wrong, and the only way to get to an afterlife is to be in their religion. Reminds me of one of my favorite South Park episodes when outside of the gates of heaven were all sorts of people of varying religions all holding up signs, chanting pick me, and the doors open and St. Peter comes out and he goes, "It's the Mormons," and they're all like, "Woohoo!" and everyone else is like, "Oh, damn," and they all are cast down to the netherworlds and everything of that nature. Now, that's a spoofy thing, of course, but um, every religion is going to say they're the right one and they're the ones who have the answers and the truth and the way to get to an afterlife, right? And every religion will also say, and if you want to get to that afterlife, here's the instructions to do so. And you may feel that you've faithfully done those things. Notice I said the word faithfully there. That'll come into play here. But just because you have faithfully done those things doesn't mean your OCD still thinks that it was good enough, right? So again, OCD doesn't care about faith. OCD wants certainty. OCD wants absolutes. And we can't give that in a faith system. We just don't seem to have enough of it. I'm reminded of a movie back in the 80s called Flatliners, where they were wondered what happens after you die. And so they were all in medical school and they would give each other heart attacks with the paddles, and then they would bring each other back after a while. But they were doing this a little too much, and there were really bad things in the afterlife that were coming about and chasing after them in the afterlife, and all sorts of stuff. So I'm not saying that that's what's out there. That was a movie, but who knows, right? So growing old with you, we're going to have to really accept the fact that yes, people are going to die, right? Maybe I'll date again. Maybe they'll die too. I don't know, right? I think of my Aunt Harriet, who had two husbands, both who passed away. Should she never have married either of them, right? But if they hadn't gotten married, they wouldn't have had all the kids they had, and some wonderful cousins that I have because of that. And was it a waste, or sometimes do things just happen? And I think that that's what we're going to have to accept, is that things happen. Now OCD again doesn't want to accept that things just happen. OCD says there is a reason for everything, and you can affect all of the reasonings for everything by, well, doing compulsions, right? You can make sure to try to control everything, and that's the way that you'll do it, because we have this notion that we can't stand the thoughts of things. And growing old with you, I'd like to suggest that you actually can deal with the thoughts about being alone, and you can deal with the fears that you have about what if you are alone in the afterlife, and what if you're not married, and is there an afterlife or anything like that. You can do it the way that everybody else seems to do it who doesn't have OCD. So growing old with you, the problem isn't people dying. The problem isn't an afterlife or lack thereof. The problem isn't any of those things. The problem is OCD. And it's the OCD getting in the way of all of those things that is really the issue. And so I wouldn't treat you for coming up with absolutisms to know if you're going to be married in the afterlife, or if there even is an afterlife, or even to help prepare you for the death of your husband. I would want to treat you for learning how to manage and deal with uncertainty, and recognize that you have the ability to handle that much better than you give yourself credit for. So, again, on my wedding anniversary, and now the second one I celebrate after my wife has died, I ask you, growing old with you, was it a stupid decision for me to get married? I don't think so. And would I have been ever better off without ever having had her in my life? I don't think so. Did it suck? Yeah, the whole thing sucked. Yeah, from the moment that we found out about the cancer all the way through her dying, it was a shit show. I'm just going to be honest with you. It was terrible, right? But there were also highlights and moments that we attempted to make things as good as we possibly could. It wasn't what we imagined. It wasn't what we thought. We didn't get out of it what we expected. But I wouldn't change it. You know, I don't think I'd be the person I am today had I not gone through it either. So, all right, moving on. Z Wolf says, I have OCD fear about losing interest in things you like. Could be seen as relationship OCD about things. I would be really grateful if you could give me some advice. Z Wolf, you may lose interest in things that you like. It is a possibility. There are definitely things that I've liked in the past that I'm not all that interested in anymore. In fact, I remember, as a kid being into sports, and now I could care less and pretty much know nothing about anybody who's playing any kind of sport whatsoever, except for college volleyball, which is fascinating. My gosh, that is incredible. If you want to watch something exciting, watch college volleyball. But otherwise, I really don't care about them, and so I have lost interest in sports. Now, if somebody has a Skybox ticket and they want to give me one for free, and I can go and eat all the amazing food and watch the game in some luxury, hey, I'm in. So if any of you, just throwing it out there, if you're not busy and you have an extra ticket or something, or kidding, I'm not gonna, but I just have lost that interest, right? So Z-Wolf, I'm wondering, should I be obsessing about that now? And should I do some work to try to get back my interest in sports that I once had? Or is it okay just to have changed and become a different person in some ways and to not have that interest anymore? Is that okay? Is that fine? Is that acceptable? I find it to be fine. I find it to be acceptable, and I'm going to stick with that. But is your fear, I wonder, that if you lose interest in something, that you're almost losing a part of yourself? Like, if this thing almost identifies you, does that mean now that you're changing or losing your identity in some way, that you will no longer be identified as a sports fan and everybody knew you that way, and because of that now they have to change and you have to change the way you see yourself and think about yourself? Well, OCD is going to jump to the worst case scenario about that and tell you how bad and awful and horrible that potentially is. And yet others, who cares? Other people won't even notice. Other people won't even care. Could you lose some friends over some of these things? Yeah, it's possible, I suppose. And that could be difficult at times, but they could also lose interest in certain things as well too. And while it could be sad, everybody kind of seems to move on or change or do different things over the course of their life. So this is one of those instances I see where OCD takes something that's pretty normal or natural and seems to happen in people's lives and jumps into being one of the absolutely most awful, horrible, worst case scenario things that could ever occur in your life, and tells you how desperately bad and awful and horrible it would be if it were to happen. So what I'm betting on, Z-Wolf, is that you are jumping to these worst case scenarios, believing them to be true, but I'm going to bet you could handle it far better than you would ever give yourself credit for. Ray says you have a compulsion with masturbation. When you feel stressed or an urge, you couldn't control it these past couple of days, but you went 60 plus days without it. You feel just like a failure to yourself and your family. I've heard this before, and people who use masturbation sometimes either as a distraction away from other intrusive thoughts or images or urges, or feel like they deserve to be able to have pleasure and therefore they should be able to control it or have it whenever they want to have it, or from whatever spectrum on there to the other. And some people feel like they can't live without it, and it kind of goes from being something that would just be fun or pleasurable to now I have this need for something. Now, This could be OCD kind of related, and this could also be some kind of sexual addiction type of experience as well too. So, Ray, what I would do in a situation like this is really reach out to somebody, and I would go and have a couple of sessions to kind of see where does this fall, right? Because though you say it's a compulsion with masturbation, I would want to know if there was an obsession associated. If there was an obsession associated and the compulsion to masturbate was there and you did that, then I would look potentially at some kind of OCD thing. But if it's just what you say, a compulsion, maybe it's more of an impulse issue. And I hate that the diagnostic manual took impulse control disorders out, because I think they really goofed up there. But maybe it's more of that kind of experience, that it's hard for you to control some of these impulses, and you could work with somebody who could really help you in that area as well too. So that's where I would go with that. Zach says, how do you stop OCD nightmares? The same way you stop regular ones, by playing your fears on repeat? That's what I would do. I would maybe make even a loop tape describing in very good detail all of the nightmare, and just listen to it over and over during the day, so that by the time you get to it at night, it won't be so bothersome anymore, right? That's kind of where I would go. Lady Hawk, hey, how are you doing? Does OCD tend to run in families? If yes, why does it? We do see that there is some more genetics in that too. So I would say that there's a gene aspect that goes along with that. If you look at the general population, where you're probably going to have about 2% of people having OCD, and then you look at a first degree relative of someone with OCD, you have a 20% chance of having OCD if you're a first degree relative of someone with OCD. And if you're an identical twin, you're around a 60 to 70% chance. So we know that genes play a role in this, and that would be why, that there is some genetic component. But it's not just genes, it's also other stuff too, right? What are the other stuff? Environmental stressors, or different things that happen in the environment, come into play as well too. And therefore, you're a mix of both. We call that the diathesis stress model, basically meaning the diatheses are the genetic components and the life stressors that happen. Zach has another question. How do you fight it when you are tired or sick, when it's 3 times harder? That's probably for the nightmares you were talking about, or for OCD in general. Thanks for everything you do. You help more than you know. Well, thanks, Zach. I appreciate that. And Lady Hawk says, good question, Zach. So, you're right. Some people report when they wake up in the morning, it's harder to challenge OCD. Some people report at night, it's harder to challenge OCD. Some people say when they're really tired, it's harder to fight OCD. Everyone has their own kind of way of dealing or not dealing with OCD, when it is or isn't much more difficult to deal with. I would say this overall: do ERP. Keep practicing ERP, because the more you practice it, and the more it becomes like a muscle memory, the less it will matter on if you're tired or other things are going on. So that's what I want you to just keep in mind and remember. It's the ERP stuff that's really going to be helpful to you. And that's what I want you to keep on really working on and doing. James says, what is my opinion about doubting your salvation, getting saved spiritual? Uh, I don't have a general opinion on that. If you're talking about this, could OCD grab onto that? Absolutely, 100%. That could be a part of scrupulosity. Scrupulosity is OCD around morals or ethics or religion, and it could involve doubts about salvation and things of that nature. And if you're saved enough, I mean, I've even heard of people who one person who was gotten a little bit of trouble somewhere once, because they kept screaming Jesus is Lord, because they had seen a preacher somewhere that day on the street, and that preacher said, if you want to be saved, you have to proclaim from your lips that Jesus is Lord. And so this person did that, and then wondered if Jesus heard them. So they did it a little louder, and still wondered if Jesus heard them, and then did a little louder, until they were screaming it at the top of their lungs. And finally the police came, because people were very concerned that this person was screaming at the top of their lungs that Jesus is Lord, and had to do a bit of an intervention with the person. So, yeah, scrupulosity can absolutely be around doubts about salvation. That's for sure. Christine says, you sometimes worry about what other people think of you, and it causes you to ruminate about social interactions that you've had. Is this OCD or social anxiety? And how do I stop doing the rumination? Sounds like social anxiety to me from the way that you've described it. There's a really wonderful book that I recommend for people with social anxiety that's called Dying of Embarrassment. And I think that you would find it to be a nice read. It's a very helpful book. It's one of the first books in the anxiety world that I read as well, too. Note written by one of the authors was one of my mentors. So that's another reason I read it. But I really do find it to be very, very, very helpful. It is not at all uncommon for people with social anxiety to now play back social interactions in their head, wonder, wait, now they said this, but maybe if I had said this, then they would have said that. And then if they had said that, maybe I would have said this instead. And then it might have gone this way. And then they might have done that, and all those kinds of things. Such a common thing that we see in social anxiety for something like that to happen. So I think that it would behoove you, again, reach out to a therapist who could really help you with this if this is really interfering in your life, and the worries about what other people are thinking about you are getting in the way of you living the life you want to live. There's some great help out there for social anxiety, and I would reach out on that. Tiff Talk says, I just want to thank you for answering your previous questions about harm OCD. It has helped you so much, and you're enjoying being present with your kids again. That's awesome. So great to hear. Thank you so much. Alexander says, how does existential OCD relate to fear of others being not real and here to only bother me or such? Well, I think you just answered the question right there in your statement. I mean, existential OCD could take on any form of why are we here? What purpose do we serve? Are we really here or are we not really here? How can we really know if we're here? What proofs do we have? Is there a way to get it? All those kinds of things. So, existential OCD can come in and play a role in all of that kind of stuff. Absolutely play a role in all of those things. So again, remember this, everyone. There's, as far as I can tell, there's nowhere OCD won't go. Okay. That's what I'll say. As far as I can tell, there isn't anywhere that OCD won't go. ABF says, for sexual orientation OCD, is the key total response prevention in doing the genital checks, etc.? I would say as much as possible. Yeah. Just like in drug addiction, the key really is total abstinence from really hard drugs, right? I mean, I know that, and don't start yelling at me about various other treatment forms here. I'm going to talk about really hard drugs right now, like cocaine and PCP and heroin and things of that nature. You don't want to be an occasional user of those things. I don't want harm reduction in that area. You can work on slowly getting off of them over time. That's fine. But in terms of that, I think that we find that it's best to not use, right? And a similar type of thing here. It's best to not do compulsions. Because if you do a compulsion once in a while, you're still giving power to the OCD. Think of it this way. Every compulsion is food to obsessive compulsive disorder. And so every compulsion feeds OCD. Now, what do we want to do? We want to starve OCD out of our life, right? And how do we starve OCD out of our life? By not doing compulsions. So that's where I would go. Kelly says, what to do when stuck in the is it OCD or denial cycle, specifically for sexual orientation OCD? You wish you could go back to a time where you didn't doubt yourself so much and just live your life. Kelly, the beauty is you can go back to that point and be like that. It's not that you can go back to that part of your life and reset or anything like that. And of course, now that you've had sexual orientation OCD, that's always going to be with you probably as something that will influence you or has made you the person that you are today. However, it doesn't mean that it has to run your life anymore. That's the key component of all of it. It doesn't mean that it has to run your life anymore. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to say it one more time. It does not mean that it has to run your life anymore. That is just so very important to keep in mind. So what do you want to do in a situation like this? Right now you might think there's no way to go back. There's no way to be the way that I was. Well, you're never going to be the same person that you were back then because you've had new experiences since you were that person back then, one of them being the OCD that you have. So you're never going to be exactly that person. But you know what? I'm never going to be the person that I was before I got married and my wife died, right? I'm a different person now because of that. So I can't go back in time and undo that or anything of that nature. I'm just going to have to accept that I am the person that I am because of the experiences that I have. But just because I am the person that I am because of the experiences that I have doesn't mean that those experiences have to ruin my life, right? I mean, is it sad that my wife died? Absolutely, right? Do I worry about that every day and think about that every day and cry about it every day and think, oh my gosh, my life is over? No, I do not. And I don't say that to sound crass or anything like that. I mean, it's not that I don't think about her every day. I do. I still live in the house that we lived in. There's still pictures of us around the house, things like that. So I can't not think about her. But it also doesn't have to be that every time I do or that I see a picture, I'm like, oh God, she died. Oh man, that was no. Now it's just like, oh, hey, I can see her, and the only pictures I have up are fun pictures, right? I don't have any pictures up of when she was sick because that's not the memories that I want to have, right? Now, you might say, oh, well then doesn't that sound OCD, or wouldn't OCD want to go there? OCD would want to go there. So if that was the case, that I was having trouble with that, then I would only probably have pictures like that, and I would work on habituating to those pictures. And once I did, and I learned that, okay, I can handle those pictures as well too, then I could put up all the different kinds of pictures that I wanted. But I don't have OCD, and I can think about her being sick, and I can look at pictures of her being sick, and I can still remember who she was prior to that and everything like that, not be too bothered by them or anything of that nature. So the fact that the pictures that I have up are fun pictures is because that's how I want to remember, right? And when I look at them, I don't have anything happen that goes, but then she also died, right? No, I just am able to look at those and go, oh yeah, that was fun. That was cool. And that's where it stops. That's where it goes. So I would think if I had OCD, it wouldn't stop there. It would go to, but then this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this, right? So, Callie, roundabout answer here. My apologies, everyone. I'm probably going off on tangents tonight. It's been a day, but a bit emotional day, but that's okay. So, Callie, as you can imagine, you can still work toward not doubting yourself, even though you've had this period of doubting yourself. Because if you couldn't do that, then I would be a farce, and everything that I would do in my professional career would be totally farcical, right? It would be absolutely wrong. I can get people to not be ruled by doubt anymore when I work with them when they have OCD. It is a possibility. It's not a fantasy. It definitely happens, right? But what you're going to have to recognize is that to get there, it's a little rough to get there, right? That's where the ERP really comes in, because it can be really kind of difficult to get people to be there. So do the work, Callie, and I believe that you can get there. And if you need a therapist, check us out at NoCD. Again, NoCD.com or TreatMyOCD.com has therapists available to work with you for OCD and related conditions like BFRBs and tics and hoarding. We would be more than happy to help you out. We take insurance here in the U.S., and we work in the U.S., Canada, Australia, and the U.K. And if you're anywhere else, check us out as well, too. Let's see if we can do something that might be able to be helpful to you. James says, what is my opinion about we did that one already, James. I think you put it in again. OCD Crusher says, thanks again for doing these every week. You are awesome. Oh, you are awesome, OCD Crusher. And it was fun to meet you at a conference recently. So glad to have had that opportunity. The name is in Greek, and I don't read Greek, so I will just read the question. Can I apply ritual prevention, e.g. for rumination, to something that turns out not to be OCD and is real? You can apply response prevention to all sorts of things, right? I do ERP for people with panic. I do ERP for people with trauma. I do ERP for people with social anxiety. I do ERP for people with phobias. It can be applied to all sorts of things. So I would say that. When you say and is real, I don't know where that comes into this really. Like if you're working on not being bothered by something that is real, like maybe has happened or something like that. Maybe it could even be like a real event OCD thing. That's where I'm a little unsure where to answer that. But ERP could be very helpful in all sorts of areas. I will say that. Wendy says, just wanted to wish you a happy holiday and thanks for all you do for the community. The love tonight is amazing. Thank you all. It's almost like you knew I was having a rough day. Karen says, I'm distracted, not thinking about OCD. Why does my brain want to take me back to fear and anxiety? How do I stop this? I become so anxious when this happens. Well, welcome to the nature of OCD, Karen. The nature of OCD is this. Maybe you should be thinking about that because maybe it's bad. And I'm noticing that you're not spending enough time really thinking about it. So I'd like to draw your attention back to thinking about it because that might be something that you should really do. So you seem to be enjoying a fine dinner with friends and family right now, but I think it would really behoove you to maybe take the next hour just to think about all the bad things that could potentially happen in this situation as well. That's what OCD would do. So, Karen, why does your brain do this? Well, because it's the nature of OCD to do such a thing, right? How do you stop this? You don't, right? It's going to do it. And instead of working on stopping it, what I want you to be able to do is to acknowledge it and move on, right? Many people will say, I want this thought to stop. And I'll say, I don't know how to do that. But what I can do is get you to the point of being able to go, oh, okay, there's that thought. Yeah, whatever, and move on. And not be ruled by the experience. So I think that you would find that you would become far less anxious when you learn how to acknowledge and move on than you do when you engage. Because once you engage, which is exactly what anxiety and OCD wants you to do, because it wants to take you down the rabbit hole, because it says to you, if we just go down here one more time, we'll be able to figure it out. We'll be able to fix it. We'll be able to have an answer. Lies, lies, lies. But that's what it'll tell you. And you have to decide, will you believe the lies? I hope you don't. I really hope you don't. Let's see here. Love is 515. I don't know why even after a week of not doing the compulsion, you still feel anxiety. Well, depending on how long you had OCD for, years and years potentially, why wouldn't you still feel anxious a little bit after a week, right? It might take a month. That's okay. That's fine. Remember, OCD is always going to try to draw you back into doing a compulsion. And the message will be this, even if it's a quiet, soft one, just do the compulsion and then you won't feel this anymore. Just do the heroin and then you won't feel it this way anymore. So you don't have to do it. Just keep that in mind. Petros says, you've been dealing with hyper-awareness OCD for so long and you feel like you have turned stupid. I have never have anything to add in any conversation and you're always zoned out thinking about OCD. Well, what a great thing to work on with a therapist, right? Because I'm going to challenge you, first of all, that you're always zoned out, because you wouldn't have been able to type this if you were totally zoned out. So let's first of all recognize this idea that you never have anything to add and you're always zoned out is an overgeneralization. Okay, we'll start there first. And once we can acknowledge that yes, okay, that is hyperbolic and then way out there. Now, am I participating in conversations as much as I would like? No. Am I paying as much attention in conversations as I would like to? I am not. Okay. Now we have somewhere that we can build off of. And so let's take a look at this hyper-awareness OCD. What are you being hyper-aware to, right? And what kind of ERP can we do to the hyper-awareness OCD so that you can learn how to just habituate, right, to the experience of the awareness instead of having to stay so aware of it over time, right? And you can absolutely do that, right? There's people with pain or who have, lost a limb or something like that, who even though the limb's not there, they have phantom limb syndrome. They can still feel like it's there. Who, even though they feel like it's there, can be like, oh yeah, that happens, and then they move on. Not, oh my gosh, it's like my arm's back, but it's not, or something of that nature, right? So you can get there, and I'd like you to work with somebody who could help you get there, because I think that that would be a really, really important thing for you to do. CL says, struggling with second guessing your actions right after something happens. An example would be thinking you touched something that you didn't and having to decontaminate. Do you have ERP tips to help deal with this? Well, a couple of options. Number one, contaminate yourself and learn to live with some of the contamination, right? So that would be one way that we would go about it. Number two, when you have the urge to decontaminate because you're not sure that you did something or not, don't fall for the urge, right? And that's where I think you would work with someone who could help you push through that, because right now it sounds like what you're saying is, I need that safety. I need to know 100%. So we want to get you out of the need for 100%. We want to get you to the point of recognizing, okay, I can handle this. I can deal with it. Right? I can live with this thing. I may not like it. It may not be comfortable, but I can handle it. And once you've learned that you can handle that thing, once you learn that you can deal with that thing, even though you have doubts about whether or not it's true or real, and you'll always jump to the worst case scenario because of that, right? That's what's going to happen. Okay. You're always going to jump to the worst case scenario. That's what OCD does. Again, another piece of the nature of OCD is to always jump to the worst case scenario. No one with OCD or anxiety has ever walked in my office and said, Dr. McGrath, I'm afraid that everyone loves me and thinks I'm awesome. It's never happened, right? It's never going to happen. So that's not what it's all about. Okay. It's never going to go there. CL says, thanks for what you do. Sure. No problem. Sunshine Bird says, hi. How do we not react to the OCD content? Sometimes I find it harder for certain thoughts. I do a lot of thought replacing. It's hard to sarcastically agree to the OCD bully. Thank you. Well, you don't always have to sarcastically agree. I'm a big fan of sarcastic agreement and things, but you don't always have to. The other thing that you could just go is say, all right, I acknowledge that thought or image or urge is there. My past experience with that has been, that's where OCD goes. My choice that I'm going to make right now is to say, that's where it's gone again. And therefore, I'm going to acknowledge and move on. In that situation, you don't have to be sarcastically agreeing with anything. You can acknowledge and you can move on in that situation. And that's plenty fine for so many people to do, is to acknowledge and to move on. So I hope that you'll have the ability to do that, or that you'll start to practice that and recognize that it isn't always, I'll agree with you, OCD, fine, whatever. I'll accept what you say, but not have to do anything about it. Maybe, maybe not. It could just be, I acknowledge, and now I move on. And you go from there. Hayden says, it's really struggling with physical sensations and health OCD tonight, really fixating on having a heart attack. The sensations just feel so real and they hurt. How to stop doing compulsions to clear doubt and anxiety for, oh, that's another one. I'm sorry. Well, Hayden, I want you to go find a therapist who works with interoceptive exposures. And you may also benefit from a book called An End to Panic. And what those are going to do is those are going to help you learn how to handle all the bodily sensations that your anxiety system will kind of trigger. And I want you to learn that you can handle those things far better than you're giving yourself credit for. So interoceptive exposure, I'll even post that in a comment here. And I think that you'll find that to be quite helpful. Okay. Braniel says, how to stop doing compulsions to clear doubt and anxiety for false memory OCD and real event OCD. Well, I don't know. And I say that I don't know because I don't know how to clear doubt and anxiety out of my life. It doesn't sound like a very realistic goal in some way to clear doubt and anxiety. That's not the way that we want to go. What would be best, right? Where do you want to go with this? What do you want to do? Well, it isn't that you have to clear doubt and anxiety. You have to learn how to live with doubt and anxiety. That's what you got to do. You got to learn how to live with doubt and anxiety. So, Brandon, I want you to think about that because I'm worried that your goal has set you up for failure. Right? Now, I'm hoping, and it's hard to tell based on the way that it's written. So I'm hoping that you're doing compulsions to clear doubt and anxiety instead of you're wanting doubt and anxiety, the way, and that's kind of what you say there. But I'm always concerned if somebody's wanting that. Brainial, I want you to set the goal that you're going to accept the fact that things pop into your head and you're going to be able to live with them. So maybe we could all accept a false memory right now. Here it is. Let's all work on this false memory. A zebra flew out of the sky, did an Irish jig on the roof of my home, and then magically turned into a unicorn, farted a rainbow off the top of my house, and then flew away. I might have seen that. Could have happened. Maybe. I don't know. But now that I've said it, and now that I picture it, can I guarantee that the reason I'm picturing it is because I just made the picture in my head, or maybe I did actually see it? I'll have to live with that, right? I'll have to accept that. And I'm not going to do anything to try to clear that out of my head whatsoever. Now you may say, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, good gosh, why would you? That level of something. Oh my. I will counter all of OCD is ridiculous. And it's the reason I have a career is to help people stop doing the ridiculous things that OCD wants them to do. Because if OCD was anything but ridiculous, people would want to have it because it would promise the truth. It would say, I can actually make things better for you. And my job would be to give OCD to people if that was the case. But because OCD is ridiculous, well, guess what? No reason to do anything that it wants you to do. And you can live with whatever false memory or real event OCD experience you have. And it doesn't actually have to bother you. Mindy says, what do I think of genome-mind testing? I don't know that one, but I've seen other people do genetic testing around various medications and have found it to be helpful. So. N1MROD says, listening to a live stream you did with Dr. Grayson, he said that if you have a horrible thought and you're 100% certain you would enjoy it without doubt, it's not OCD. That caused you to spiral. As a person with a 12-year-old untreated sexual orientation OCD condition, you had obsessions and testing compulsions that felt extremely real and convincing. No way could I have ever convinced myself that was OCD. Yeah. So therefore, you never had anything that you were 100% certain about and that you didn't have doubt about. What John said there is a non sequitur. What John said there is not a possibility. I don't know anybody who would do something with 100% certain and enjoy it without any doubt if it was something horrible or awful. So that's where he was going with that. That's where I would go with it. Fluey says, how do you stop obsessing over intrusive thoughts about fearing getting schizophrenia? Is it hypochondriac related? I always second guess myself you have schizophrenia or not. Well, I'm going to bet you this, Willie. No one's going to convince you that you don't have schizophrenia. So my job, of course, is not trying to convince you that you do not have schizophrenia. The job of anybody working with you will be getting you to accept the fact that you doubt whether that you have it or not. You wonder, and you may always wonder if you have it or not. But just because you do doesn't mean that it has to interfere in your life whatsoever. I may wonder if I have an arm coming out of my back. I may check constantly to see if it's there. I might even once in a while have a sensation back there that is telling me that I have one, but it does not have to interfere in my life if whether I think I have one or not. Right? I may not share it with anybody, but it doesn't have to have any interference whatsoever in my life. So you may have random thoughts throughout the day. God, that was a weird. Does that mean I have schizophrenia? And you could go down a path to try to figure it out to see if that's the case. Or the other thing that you could just is go, oh yeah, there's that OCD again. Okay, moving along, and then go and do that because that's the way that you're going to have to face it if you want to truly overcome it. Otherwise, you're giving into it, and we know this. Whenever we give into it, we don't get any better. Whenever we give into it, it's not going to lead us to be better. Mr. Ashtino says, I'm dealing with what I believe to be pedophilic OCD. I've always loved TV and video games, and now you can't enjoy either because a lot of them have child or teen protagonists. I know I'm not thinking about them in any inappropriate way, but I'm acknowledging their looks. I like their character looks and their personalities. I'm not sure what to do. Any advice? Well, boy, I mean, if that's the case, no one should ever watch any TV show that has anyone under 18 in it because we may like how somebody looks. We may like their character. We may like their voice. We may find how they dress to be very stylish or something of that nature. And therefore, in the worst case scenario, as you're trying to describe here, could that mean that you have a pedophilic feeling or thought about somebody? Now, I am not suggesting anybody stop watching television shows that have teenagers in them, right? Because this is where OCD goes. OCD takes it to this what if kind of level. What if the reason I really like video games is because they have young looking characters in there? And what if the fact that the young looking characters in there are attractive? And what if I find myself attracted to those young? And what if the fact that I like them translates to me potentially liking them in real life as well too? And then what if I did like them in real life? And then what if I did like them in real life enough that I would want to be with one of them? And what if I then went on a chat room, and what if, so I mean, if you want to do that, we could do that about absolutely anything or anyone in the entire world, right? What if my wearing these headphones means that I really like people on the radio? And what if there are people on the radio, though, that I don't like? And what if then that means that I think that they're besmirching radio? And what if that then means that I buy a gun and I go shoot them because I don't like how they make radio look bad because I love radio. And that's why I wear these headphones and have this microphone because I love radio so much. I could go there, right? I mean, it only took steps to get there. So I could go there. There's no reason why that wouldn't be somewhere that anyone could go, right? So we can make all the associations that we choose to make, but just because we make them doesn't mean that they have to have any meaning whatsoever. Let's see. Let me see where I want to go. People are telling Mr. Shino to play the games. Yes, thank you. Doubt is normal. Someone talks about doing therapy for a while, but it's hard to listen and use your tools. Your OCD is for extreme and compulsive porn use. Again, I would wonder about that being OCD versus a sexual addiction. So you might want to talk to your therapist about that to see if that's the case, and maybe want to check into that in a little bit different way. So. T says, you do oven checking. What's the worst that can happen? Your pets get burned alive along with your home. So it's not easily dismissive. That's why it's hard to ignore. T, I wonder why on Thanksgiving, when everyone's cooking these turkeys for so many hours, all the houses don't burn down and all the pets don't die, if that's the case, right? I have turned my oven on and put something in overnight and then gone to bed, and the house is still here. So T, I'm going to bet you this: I could have left that oven on for 25 days in a row, and my house would still be here, and that would be that. I have no pets, so I can't make any comments on that. But definitely the house would still be here even if the oven was on. There are restaurants that never turn their ovens off, right? They keep them going. There are barbecue restaurants that the smokers are going constantly. They stoke them at night before they leave, and they come back and they go. Or some even hire people to be there all night to make sure that they're still stoking them. So T, could your fear happen? Well, of course, right? I mean, I can't guarantee that one oven one day wouldn't cause a fire. Right? It could happen. What's the likelihood of it happening? I'm going to go relatively low, but OCD is kind of like the movie Dumb and Dumber, right? In that one scene, would you date me? Only if you're the last man on earth. So you're telling me I've got a chance. And that's where OCD loves to go, is in this notion of you're telling me I've got a chance, right? So, I can't give you a guarantee. And you're going to have to make a decision, T. Is it okay to not have a guarantee? Now, T, if you want a guarantee, then if you will please forward your car keys and title of your car to me, because you also have no guarantee that you won't kill somebody while driving your car, or that you wouldn't run one of your pets over while driving your car, maybe in the driveway or something like that. So T, if we're looking to have an absolute guarantee of things, let's take the oven out of your house, and then let's give me your car. And then we just eliminated 2 ways for your pets to die, right? How wonderful is that? Awesome. I think we found the solution. Or we allow ourselves to live with doubt, because that's the other option, right? That's the other option. Derek says, my OCD is surrounded by the fear of getting brain damage and concussions, hitting your head, etc. You're very hyper aware of your sensations and memory, immediate cognitive problems after a thought. How do you stop? You could hit your head. It is a possibility. It is possible you'll fall. It is possible you'll trip. There could be cognitive problems that could happen because of it. All of these things are possible. So I just want to acknowledge that first, that we have possibility, right? Now, we probably have pretty low probability here in this situation. But remember, OCD makes possibility equal probability. So, you may be very hyper aware of your sensations and your memory. And of course, the hyper awareness of those will really bring them into such focus that you'll have more doubts about them, right? Once we bring something into hyper awareness, it's very easy to have more doubt about it, actually. Is it what it was before? Does it feel quite the same way? Do I remember quite the same amount of stuff that I remembered before? All of those kinds of things. So know that the more you check, the more you doubt. If checking made things better, we would prescribe checking. Checking actually makes things worse, and that's why we don't prescribe checking at all. CL says, walking on the treadmill while watching this, it's dusty because it's in your garage and you don't want to touch it and then touch your phone, but maybe you should do an exposure right now. Do it, do it, do it, do the exposure, do the exposure. Yes, that's exactly what you want. That's exactly what you want to do. All right, we are getting close to the end here. Just a reminder for all of you that this was brought to you by NoCD. NoCD online. Check us out. Great platform for the treatment of obsessive compulsive disorder, body focused repetitive behaviors, tics. We would be more than happy to assist you and get you the help that you need. We work in all sorts of places. We're in Canada, the UK, Australia, the US. We take insurance. And, if you're looking for help, we hope that you'll feel good enough to reach out to us. Let us know what's going on. Have a call with one of our amazing care team members. And let's see what we can do to assist you. Well, everyone, thanks for being with me today. I really do appreciate it. I hope that this has been a helpful night for you. It's actually been a good night for me, and thanks for letting me chat about things. Sometimes you got to get some things off your chest, and I trust all of you enough to do that, and I thanks for the opportunity as well. So be well, be good to yourselves, be better yourselves than OCD tries to be to you, that's for darn sure, because, well, that thing's just a jerk, isn't it? And my challenge to all of you is this. Tomorrow, treat yourself like you like yourself. See what happens. The following day, imagine treating everybody you know like you normally treat yourself. Think about what would happen then. No one would probably ever speak to you again. OCD is not your friend. OCD is not there to help you. OCD just cares about OCD. No need to believe anything it says. Be well, everyone. Talk to you later.